The sun rose gently over the rolling hills that cradled the village of Kisumu, painting the sky with shades of gold and amber. Mist curled lazily along the riverbanks, sparkling as it caught the first light, and the scent of wet earth mingled with the fragrance of blooming hibiscus and marula trees. The village was alive with the soft murmur of daily life, the rhythmic pounding of millet and wooden mortars, the clinking of water jugs, and the laughter of children running barefoot across the dusty paths. Each morning seemed like a ritual, a quiet celebration of life that flowed as naturally as the river that gave the village its name. Amid this serenity walked Amara, a girl of 16 with eyes that mirrored the sparkle of the river and a smile that could brighten even the gloomiest of days. Her laughter was not just a sound, it was a melody that seemed to awaken the flowers along her path. Red and yellow blooms unfurled as she passed, and the birds would stop their singing to join in her cheerful chorus. Villagers often said that when Amara laughed, even the sun lingered a little longer above the hills, as if reluctant to leave her warmth behind. Amara's days were simple but full of purpose. She rose with the dawn, fetching water from the river and tending the small vegetable patch behind her home, which had once belonged to her mother. Her mother had been the heart of their family, a woman whose kindness and patience were known across the village, but she had passed when Amara was only 10. Since then, Amara had carried her mother's gentle spirit within her, tending not only to the plants and animals but also to the people around her. She helped the elders carry firewood, guided the younger children to school, and even sang lullabies to the babies of the village while their mothers worked in the fields. No task was too small or too tiring to receive her cheerful attention, and in return, the village seemed to cradle her in love and admiration. Amara's bond with nature was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Flowers bloomed in impossible places where she walked, grass seemed greener under her feet, and the river would sometimes curve slightly as if eager to touch her bare toes. She often paused to talk to the birds perched on the branches, convinced they understood her words, and sometimes, late in the afternoon, she would lie among the wildflowers, listening to the wind hum its gentle secrets. It was as if the land itself recognized her, welcomed her, and whispered back, protecting her innocence and joy. Yet not everyone in the household shared the village's affection for Amara. Her stepmother, Zahira, a woman with sharp eyes and a heart steeped in envy, watched her with growing resentment. Zahira had once tried to charm the villagers with her cunning smile and clever hands, but Amara's laughter, kindness, and effortless beauty overshadowed her at every turn. She noticed how the children gravitated toward Amara, how neighbors praised her daily deeds, and most of all, how the earth seemed to bloom in her presence, a truth Zahira could neither touch nor control. Behind Zahira's eyes lurked a storm of jealousy, a quiet but burning desire to dim the light that Amara carried so naturally. Even so, the village remained enchanted by the girl whose heart seemed bound to the land. People whispered among themselves that Amara's connection with nature was no ordinary thing. Some said she had been blessed by the spirits of the hills, others murmured that the river herself had chosen her to guard its songs and laughter. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain. Amara's joy could not be easily buried, and the world around her would forever reflect the light she carried inside. And so, in the heart of Kisumu, as the sun spilled across the hills and the river shimmered in celebration, Amara's laughter mingled with the morning breeze, a promise that even in shadow, her spirit could never be fully hidden. As the days passed, Zahira's envy festered like a slow-growing vine that strangled her heart from within. She watched Amara move through the village with her usual grace and joy, the young girl's laughter spilling over like sunlight onto every roof and path she touched. Where Amara's bare feet pressed against the earth, tiny wildflowers sprouted, a living reminder of her radiant spirit. Villagers often paused to smile at her or greet her warmly, and children ran to her side, eager for her songs, her stories, and her gentle hands that could calm any tear. Every glance at this scene felt like salt in Zahira's soul, for she had once dreamed of such admiration herself, but it was Amara who drew the village's heart with effortless charm. Zahira began her quiet campaign. At first it was subtle, a whispered comment here, a pointed comparison there. She would mention Amara's clumsiness to the elders, implying she was too naive to help in serious work. She would claim that the girl's laughter disturbed the solemnity of village rituals, that her cheerfulness was merely a mask hiding laziness. Slowly, Zahira's words began to ripple through the community, though few truly believed them. For every doubt she planted, the villagers noticed Amara's unwavering kindness and courage, and their admiration only deepened. Not content with mere whispers, Zahira demanded more from Amara. Chores that seemed impossible were assigned daily, carrying water from the far side of the river multiple times a day, gathering firewood in the scorching sun, and tending to the animals while the stepmother herself rested in the cool shade. Yet Amara, resilient and pure of heart, met each task with a smile. Her laughter, though quieter under the weight of exhaustion, still rang through the homestead. She hummed as she worked, sang softly to the chickens, and greeted every villager she passed with a nod and a grin. Her joy became a shield, impervious to Zahira's schemes, and villagers began to speak of her resilience with reverent awe. It was in her desperation that Zahira sought the aid of a sorceress who lived deep within the forest, a woman cloaked in shadow and mystery. The villagers spoke of her in hushed tones, saying she could twist memories, silence laughter, and even bend the will of the heart. Zahira approached her one moonless night, carrying gifts of herbs, gold beads, and whispered promises. "Bury her memories," she demanded, her voice quivering with both fear and fury. "Let her forget the joy she carries. Let her heart be empty so I may shine where she once shone." The sorceress, her eyes glimmering like embers, nodded slowly. She spoke of ancient rites, of burying the essence of laughter in the earth so deep that it could be forgotten. Zahira left the forest with her plan in place, her heart briefly swelling with hope. She believed that once Amara's memories of happiness were gone, her laughter extinguished, she herself would finally claim the admiration, the respect, and the envy of the village. But Amara remained untouched, her spirit too bright, too intertwined with the land to be fully subdued. She continued her daily routines with an innocence that could not be faked, her laughter spilling unexpectedly even in moments of hardship. She would trip on a rocky path, yet her giggles turned the stumble into a dance. She spilled water from the jug she carried across the yard, and instead of crying, she clapped her hands in delight at the way sunlight fractured across the droplets. The villagers watched in wonder, noticing that even under Zahira's manipulations, Amara's heart could not be chained. Her resilience became legendary in small, quiet ways. The elder who saw her care for his sick goat without complaint, the children who followed her songs across the fields, the flowers that blossomed even when the soil was parched. All of these signs whispered a truth that Zahira could not see. The laughter, joy, and kindness of a pure heart could never be fully buried, and the more she tried to snuff it out, the stronger it seemed to grow. In the shadows of the village, under the jealous gaze of Zahira, Amara's laughter and innocence wove themselves into the fabric of Kisumu. Every smile she shared, every gentle word, became an unseen force, a magic older and more powerful than any curse. Zahira had planted seeds of envy and darkness, but Amara, unaware of the storm brewing around her, continued to shine. The land itself seemed to conspire in her favor. Birds circled above her, rivers rippled toward her feet, and the wind carried her giggles across the hills. Even in her envy, Zahira could not truly grasp the force she faced. For what she saw as a fragile, laughing girl was in truth a living force of nature, a spirit intertwined with the soil, sky, and water. The jealousy that consumed her was powerless against a heart that knew no malice, and though she plotted in secret, the village already knew who held the true light. Amara's laughter, unbroken and pure, became a song that neither shadow nor envy could silence. That night, beneath a sky void of stars, Zahira crept quietly into the forest, carrying the sorceress's talisman wrapped in cloth, along with offerings of herbs and silver beads. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and moss, and the forest whispered with secrets only the shadows understood. In a clearing shrouded by towering ebony trees, the sorceress began her ritual. She drew intricate symbols in the soil, chanting words that twisted like smoke and shimmered with an otherworldly light. Zahira's eyes glimmered with anticipation, her breath quickening with a mixture of fear and desire. The ritual was precise. A circle of ash and petals formed around an earthen mound, and a single candle flickered in the center, casting dancing shadows that seemed alive. The sorceress took a strand of Amara's hair, a lock she had collected days before, and whispered an incantation so soft it could only be heard by those attuned to the ancient spirits. With each syllable, a fragment of Amara's laughter, her memories of joy, and her brightest moments were drawn from the ether and buried in the dark grove. The forest shivered as if sensing the unnatural act, but the ritual continued, pulling the essence of Amara's happiness into the soil where it would lie hidden, inaccessible, or so Zahira hoped. By the time the candle guttered and died, Zahira felt a strange satisfaction. She imagined Amara waking the next morning, her heart dull, her laughter silenced, her brightness extinguished. With the sorceress's instructions in her mind, she returned home, convinced that her jealousy had finally triumphed. Morning arrived with a gentle light that seemed ordinary at first, but for Amara, it was disorienting. She awoke in her modest room, the familiar sense of millet and fresh water surrounding her, yet something felt missing. She tried to summon the memories of the day before, of the playful songs she had sung while fetching water or tending the garden, but the recollections were hazy as if filtered through a thick, cold mist. Faces of her friends, the warm smile of a neighbor, the laughter of children she often played with, all blurred into indistinct shapes. Even the comforting memory of her mother felt distant, like a story she had only heard once and forgotten. For a moment, Amara's laughter faltered. The melody that had once sprung from her heart so effortlessly now stumbled and fell into silence. Her hands trembled slightly as she touched the petals of a hibiscus in her window box, and for a fleeting instant, a small spark of joy returned. The memory of chasing a butterfly, of sunlight dancing across the river, of feeling her mother's embrace, all flickered and vanished again. Confusion and sadness clouded her mind, an unfamiliar heaviness pressing on her chest. Villagers immediately noticed the change. The children hesitated before running to her, sensing a subtle difference in her energy. Elders observed her in the fields, noting that her usual laughter, which had once animated the very air, was faint and hesitant. Even the animals, who had always responded to her gentle presence, seemed cautious, circling her but not coming as close as before. Whispers spread through the village. Something had changed in Amara, though none could name it. Yet even in the grip of the curse, Amara could not be completely subdued. The land itself seemed to resist the sorcery. As she walked through the garden, tiny seeds sprouted in her path, delicate green shoots pushing through the soil as if answering a call only she could hear. Flowers began to bloom tentatively along the edges of the riverbank where she had stopped to rest, their petals reaching toward her as though coaxed by a memory too deep to fully erase. The wind carried faint echoes of her own laughter, mingling with the rustle of the trees and the babble of the river, a subtle reminder that even buried, her joy still lived. Amara wandered through the village, touching the earth and trying to grasp the fragments of herself. Each flower, each small creature that came to her, offered a glimmer of recognition, a spark of happiness that refused to be extinguished. Her mind remained clouded, her memories scattered, yet these small moments of connection reminded her that her essence had not been completely stolen. Even as confusion and sorrow threatened to overwhelm her, the seeds beneath her feet whispered a promise. Her laughter could never be fully buried, and one day, it would rise again, bright and uncontainable. In the eyes of the villagers, a quiet miracle had begun. Though Amara's joyous spirit seemed dimmed, the land bore witness to a truth Zahira could not yet see. The girl's laughter, tied as it was to the soil, the flowers and the river, had a life of its own. It waited patiently, biding its time, growing stronger in silence, ready to reclaim the world she had once illuminated with her unbridled joy. With the curse in place, Zahira felt a fleeting triumph. For the first time in months, she believed she held true power over Amara. The girl moved through the household like a shadow of herself, her laughter faint and fragmented, her eyes often distant as though peering into memories that refused to come. Zahira assigned her countless chores from dawn until dusk, scrubbing floors until her hands were raw, hauling water from the far end of the river, tending the animals with relentless rigor. She forbade Amara from speaking with the village children or visiting neighbors, hoping isolation would fully cement her control. At first, Amara complied, confused and weary, her mind clouded by the loss of her happiest memories. Faces she had once loved now appeared unfamiliar, the songs she had sung so freely now seemed foreign. Even the familiar path to the river felt strange beneath her feet. She paused frequently, touching flowers or picking up a small stone from the path, searching for a spark to rekindle the warmth in her heart. Occasionally, a fleeting memory would return, the faint brush of her mother's hand, the echo of a bird's song, a snippet of her own laughter, and she would smile briefly only for the weight of confusion to drag it away again. Yet even in her subdued state, there were signs of her resilience. A wise elder named Maliki, who had once watched over her mother, noticed the changes and quietly observed Amara. He understood that her spirit had not been destroyed, it had only been clouded. Maliki would leave small tokens for her, a sprig of jasmine on her pillow, a bird feather tucked beneath the windowsill, little reminders of who she truly was. These gestures went unnoticed by Zahira but offered Amara brief flashes of recognition and comfort, strengthening the unspoken bond between them. A loyal friend, a girl named Sifa from the village, would attempt to visit under the cover of dawn. Sifa had grown up with Amara, sharing laughter, secrets and childhood games. Though their conversations were brief and cautious, each encounter brought small sparks of joy. Sifa would tell Amara stories of the village, the river, and the flowers that bloomed in impossible places, tales that slowly chipped away at the fog of confusion surrounding her heart. Even the natural world refused to abandon her. A small golden lizard appeared at her window daily, watching her with curious eyes. The villagers whispered that it was a spirit sent by the river to guard her, a silent reminder of her own connection to the land. Amara would follow its movements for a few moments, and sometimes the sight of it would trigger a fragment of laughter, a fleeting memory of playful curiosity that had always lived within her. Amara's nights became a realm of visions and dreams. In the solitude of her room, she drifted into slumber, and there her laughter and joy began to guide her in secret. She dreamt of chasing butterflies along the riverbank, of sitting beneath her mother's favorite tree, of dancing barefoot across fields of flowers that responded to her movements. Each dream was vivid and bittersweet, fragments of her true self trying to break through the fog of the curse. Sometimes she awoke with a soft giggle, a sound so brief and delicate that Zahira dismissed it as a trick of the wind. Yet each time, it was a small victory, a reminder that the essence of Amara could not be fully contained. Days turned into weeks, and Zahira's satisfaction grew uneasy. No matter how tightly she held Amara within her grasp, the girl's spirit flickered in unexpected moments. A smile while mending a broken basket, a laugh when a child ran past the window, a quiet hum as she watered the garden. Each act defied the stepmother's expectations. The land, too, seemed to aid Amara's recovery. Tiny buds unfurled along her path, rivers seemed to sparkle brighter where she walked, and the wind whispered her name softly among the trees. Maliki and Sifa began to believe that Amara's laughter, though hidden, was still alive. They would leave small signs for her to follow, petals arranged in patterns, a trail of river pebbles, or a soft chime of bamboo that rang in the morning breeze. Slowly, these reminders began to stitch together fragments of memory, weaving her forgotten joys into something tangible once more. The golden lizard remained a constant companion, watching as if it knew the secret of her eventual triumph. And so, under the watchful eyes of the land and the loyalty of those who truly loved her, Amara continued to endure. Though her days were filled with hardship and her nights with dreams of the life she could barely recall, the essence of her joy survived. It moved quietly through her veins, through the soil beneath her feet, through the river's current, whispering that no matter the weight of cruelty, her laughter, her light, and her spirit could never be extinguished. It did not take long for the village of Kisumu to notice that something unusual was stirring. Fields near Zahira's dwelling began to wither mysteriously. Crops that should have thrived under the warm sun drooped, leaves curling and stems cracking under a seemingly invisible force. Patches of earth that had once been fertile became dry and brittle, and even the chickens and goats seemed uneasy around the stepmother's household. Whispers spread among the villagers, for none could recall a season when the land responded with such uneven favor. In stark contrast, wherever Amara walked, life seemed to awaken. Flowers sprouted along the edges of the river, delicate buds unfurling in brilliant reds, yellows, and blues. The wild grass grew taller and greener, swaying gently as if bowing to her presence. Birds, startled at first, soon began to follow her, perching on her shoulders, her hair, even her outstretched hands. Children, drawn by her faint giggle or the subtle twinkle in her eyes, ran to her side, holding out small offerings of fruit or flowers, eager to share their own joy. It was as though the earth itself recognized her as its guardian, and no curse could alter the rhythm of life that followed her footsteps. The elders of the village gathered in secret, murmuring among themselves as they observed the phenomena. One of them, Elder Maliki, who had watched over Amara since she was a child, raised his weathered hand and spoke with quiet authority. "There is a spirit at work here," he said, his voice carrying the weight of generations. "It has chosen this girl, Amara, as its vessel. She is bound to the land in a way we have not seen in many years. The laughter that once filled her home is not merely hers alone. It belongs to the hills, the river, the flowers, and all creatures that walk this land." He explained that the imbalance near Zahira's dwelling was no coincidence. "The stepmother's envy," Maliki murmured, "cannot override the spirit that flows through Amara. Wherever darkness tries to take root, the light that she carries will push it away. It is a sign, children, that even when humans seek to bury what is good, the earth remembers. Nature itself defends the laughter of the pure." The villagers began to watch Amara more closely, following her movements through the fields and forests. They noted the way seeds sprouted along her path, how the wind seemed to favor her, carrying her gentle giggle across the village like a blessing. Children gathered around her more boldly, sensing her inherent goodness. Birds of every hue circled above her, some even landing on her shoulders to listen to her soft songs. Animals that had been timid or frightened before now approached her, nuzzling her legs or brushing against her hands, drawn by the unseen threads of her spirit. Meanwhile, Zahira grew restless and frustrated. Her anger bubbled beneath the surface, a black tide threatening to spill over. She watched in disbelief as Amara's influence continued to expand, despite the curse that had been placed on her. The crops in her own garden remained withered and cracked, and her attempts to scold or punish the girl seemed ineffectual. Every step Amara took, every small laugh or smile, defied the stepmother's magic. Even her whispered threats and cold glares failed to diminish the power that followed the young girl like sunlight. Zahira's envy twisted into desperation. She sought to control the outcomes by tightening restrictions, assigning heavier chores and forbidding the villagers from interacting with Amara, but all efforts were in vain. The village itself, it seemed, had taken notice. Seeds sprouted in defiance, flowers bloomed unbidden, and life gravitated toward the girl who carried more than her own happiness. She carried a legacy of joy that no darkness could contain. In the quiet moments, when the wind swept through the hills and the sun cast its warm glow across the land, the villagers whispered to one another, "Even if her memory has been clouded, her laughter remains. The land will not let it die." And so, while Zahira fumed in vain, the village began to understand that the true magic lay not in spells and envy, but in the heart that refused to be broken, and in the laughter that could awaken the world itself. One morning, as the first golden rays of sunlight kissed the hills, Amara felt a stirring within her heart, a gentle tug that whispered of forgotten laughter and memories buried too deep to remain hidden. Though the fog of the sorceress's curse still lingered, fragments of her joy flickered like faint sparks, calling her to seek the truth of who she once was. She realized that she could no longer wait for the world to remind her. She must journey beyond the walls of her stepmother's control and reclaim the essence of herself. Before leaving, she lingered by the garden, noticing tiny flowers bravely blooming in the winter frost, petals glimmering like drops of sunlight. A small bird, bright as a jewel, hopped across the frosted earth and let out a melody so pure it made her chest swell. "Follow me," it seemed to sing. Amara knew instinctively that these were signs, gentle nudges from the land itself, guiding her toward the path she had to take. Gathering a small satchel with essentials, she stepped quietly through the morning mist, the dew sparkling beneath her feet, as if the earth itself encouraged her steps. Her journey first led her through the familiar yet now strange forests near the village, where ancient trees stretched toward the sky like guardians of forgotten stories. Sunlight filtered through the leaves in dancing patterns, and Amara followed the small animal she encountered along the way. A wise tortoise, slow but deliberate, crossed her path and spoke in a voice that echoed in her mind, "The truth is not lost, it waits where laughter blooms anew." Startled, she blinked, unsure if the tortoise had truly spoken, but when it turned and waddled down a hidden path, she felt a surge of courage and followed. The path twisted and narrowed, leading her to the riverbank where she had spent so many joyful afternoons as a child. The water, usually familiar and comforting, shimmered with a strange, magical glow. From its depths, a faint whisper reached her ears, the voice of her mother, soft and soothing. "Amara," it called, "remember that laughter is the key. Even when shadows press upon your heart, joy cannot be buried." Tears filled her eyes, a mixture of longing and hope as she knelt by the river, tracing patterns in the water and letting her fingertips ripple the surface. For a moment, a small giggle escaped her lips, faint but real, and the river seemed to sparkle in response. Guided by this delicate thread of memory, Amara ventured deeper into the land, discovering a sacred grove hidden among the hills. Here, the air was thick with fragrance, blossoms of impossible colors carpeted the ground, and the wind carried melodies that seemed almost human in their cadence. In the heart of the grove, she encountered a majestic leopard, its fur gleaming like the night sky. To her amazement, it spoke with a voice both gentle and commanding, "You carry what no curse can touch. To reclaim what is lost, you must remember to laugh, not just for yourself but for the world that loves you still." Amara's journey continued, taking her to a magical waterfall, its waters cascading with a silver light that reflected her own face back at her. The falls whispered secrets in a language older than memory, and as she stood beneath the mist, droplets kissed her cheeks like tiny sparks of forgotten joy. With every step through the spray, flashes of her childhood laughter returned. The games with village children, the songs she had sung, the stories her mother had told, all pieces of her identity flowing back to her like the water itself. Throughout this journey, Amara realized a vital truth. The act of laughing was itself a reclaiming of her memory. Each time she smiled, each tiny chuckle that escaped her, a fragment of her life returned, blooming like the flowers that grew along her path. The land seemed to recognize her intent. Seeds sprouted, rivers sparkled, and even the wind carried her laughter to distant hills. Amara began to understand that the magic of the curse had never been stronger than the power of her own spirit. By the time she reached the edge of the sacred grove, the girl who had once been lost in confusion was slowly reclaiming herself. Her laughter, soft at first, began to rise with confidence, echoing through the trees and across the river. The spirits of the land, the animals, and even her mother's voice joined her in an unseen chorus, reminding her that the essence of joy is never truly buried. It only waits for courage, hope, and the willingness to embrace it again. Amara's secret journey had begun as a quest for memory, but it was quickly becoming a path of transformation. Each step, each interaction with nature, and each tiny spark of laughter reminded her that she was never alone, that her joy had always been a force capable of defying darkness, and that the reclamation of her heart and spirit was only just beginning. As Amara continued her journey through the sacred lands beyond Kisumu, she soon realized that reclaiming her memories would not be simple. The spirits of the forest, guardians of ancient magic, had prepared trials to test her heart, and the path ahead shimmered with both promise and peril. Each step seemed to hum with a quiet energy, as if the land itself whispered, "Only those who embrace laughter as strength may pass." Her first trial emerged near a grove of ancient baobab trees, their thick trunks carved with intricate symbols that glowed faintly in the moonlight. As she approached, the tree's branches began to move, twisting into the shape of a colossal face, deep grooves forming eyes that sparkled like stars. To proceed, a deep, resonant voice intoned, "You must answer a riddle of the heart. What rises when all seems lost yet cannot be seen?" Amara paused, closing her eyes and remembering the fragments of laughter that had guided her thus far. A memory of chasing butterflies in the village meadow surfaced, a moment of pure joy she had nearly forgotten. She smiled, feeling the warmth of it in her chest, and spoke softly, "It is laughter. It rises from the heart even when shadows fall, and though unseen, it shapes the world around us." The baobab trees shuddered with approval, and a hidden path opened, lined with glowing petals. Each step along this path restored a fragment of her memory, the giggle she shared with Sifa while hiding from Zahira, the songs her mother had sung by the river, and the moments when the animals of Kisumu had drawn near her. With each recollection, her chest swelled with energy, and her laughter began to flow freely, a melody that seemed to make the forest itself sway in rhythm. Her second trial came in the form of an illusionary river, its waters dark and reflective, showing her images of sorrow and confusion. Shadows of her lost memories danced on the surface, whispering fears, regrets, and doubts. "You are powerless," they hissed. "Your laughter is gone, and so is your joy." Amara knelt beside the water, taking a deep breath. She closed her eyes and focused on the tiny sparks of happiness that had remained, the flowers that had bloomed under her steps, the golden lizard that had watched over her, and the faint giggle that had once escaped her in dreams. With a laugh that began small and grew louder, she splashed her hands into the river. The illusions shattered like glass, revealing bright, flowing waters that mirrored the sky above. Memories long buried surged back, her mother's warm hands, the soft hum of village songs, and the pure delight of playing among wildflowers. Each memory returned not just as recollection, but as power, a force that strengthened her connection to the land and its spirits. Her final trial appeared as a magical creature, a fox with fur that shimmered like molten gold, its eyes holding both mischief and wisdom. It leapt before her, blocking the path, and spoke, "Many seek joy, yet few understand it. Only by laughing in defiance of sorrow will you pass." The fox conjured illusions of grief, Zahira's harsh words, the weight of her chores, the emptiness left by forgotten memories, attempting to trap her in despair. Amara closed her eyes, recalling the gentle whispers of ancestral spirits she had felt along the riverbanks, the protective hum of the sacred groves, and the vibrant energy of the flowers sprouting beneath her feet. She laughed, first a timid chuckle, then a strong, clear peal of joy that echoed through the trees. The fox bowed gracefully, its form dissolving into a shower of golden sparks that danced upon the breeze. With it, the last fragments of her memory returned, each moment of happiness now fused with the understanding that her laughter was both shield and sword, joy and power intertwined. By the end of her trials, Amara felt a profound shift within herself. Her memories were not just returned, they were strengthened, illuminated by the realization that laughter was not mere delight but a force capable of shaping reality, of countering darkness, and of reclaiming what had been stolen. The spirits of the land, ancestral and natural alike, whispered in harmony with her own voice, encouraging her to continue her journey. Birds circled above her, petals floated gently in the air, and the river sang her name in soft, flowing rhythms. Amara's heart soared, for she understood at last that the journey was not simply about recovering what had been lost, but about embracing the power within her laughter, a magic older than the hills themselves. The path ahead remained uncertain, yet she stepped forward with renewed courage, knowing that no shadow, no envy, no curse could withstand the force of a joyful heart. Word of Amara's journey did not remain hidden for long. Zahira, pacing the floor of her dimly lit home, felt a creeping unease. The crops around her dwelling continued to wither, animals avoided her, and villagers whispered of the girl whose laughter now carried magic. Fueled by fear and fury, Zahira vowed that if Amara dared to defy her, she would destroy her completely. She gathered dark talismans, whispered curses, and prepared a trap in the forest. A labyrinth of thorned vines and shadowed illusions meant to ensnare the girl and end her journey forever. But Amara, strengthened by the trials and guided by the subtle signs of nature, approached the forest edge with courage. The air seemed heavier here, charged with Zahira's malice. Thorned vines twisted toward her as if alive, and shadows swirled in shapes meant to frighten and confuse. Yet each time she let out a soft laugh, a note of pure joy, the thorns recoiled, the shadows wavered, and tiny sprouts of flowers emerged where her feet touched the soil. Her laughter had become a shield, a key, and a weapon, turning the trap into a path she could navigate. Zahira waited in the center of her sinister maze, her eyes glinting with malice. "You dare laugh?" she hissed, her voice slicing through the trees like a blade. "You are nothing without your memories, girl. Today you will kneel before me." Amara stepped forward, chest heaving, heart steady, her memories flashing in vivid clarity. The playful days with Sifa, her mother's tender guidance, the dances with animals, the songs by the river. Each memory reinforced the strength surging within her, intertwining with the magic of the earth itself. The confrontation began as Zahira unleashed a torrent of dark energy, swirling shadows and conjured storms meant to crush Amara's spirit. The ground cracked beneath her feet and gusts of wind tore through the trees. But Amara's laughter rang out, bright and unyielding, manifesting in literal blooms along the forest floor, vibrant petals unfurling as sunlight pierced the canopy. The shadows faltered, the dark wind fractured, and life returned to places Zahira had tried to poison. Birds circled above her, rivers shimmered with silver light, and the golden lizard she had befriended darted across her path, a symbol of resilience and protection. Zahira advanced, her talismans glowing ominously, her curses hissing through the air like vipers. She tried to twist the forest to her will, conjuring illusions of Amara's fears, loneliness, failure, and despair. Yet Amara faced them with calm laughter, each peel undoing the darkness. Flowers erupted at her touch, vines wove into protective shields, and sunlight seemed to bend around her, painting the entire forest with radiant life. With each victory over the illusions, her memories returned fully, each joyous moment reinforcing her power and clarity. The villagers, sensing the extraordinary events, arrived quietly from the edges of the forest. They brought offerings, prayers, and support, joining the magical energy already converging around Amara. Elder Maliki raised his hands, invoking ancestral spirits that glimmered like faint stars in the underbrush. Birds, animals, and even the river itself responded to the call, creating a chorus of life that surrounded Amara. Zahira, caught in the midst of this unanticipated unity and power, faltered. Her malice was strong, but she had underestimated the force of pure joy combined with love and community. Amara stepped closer to her stepmother, now radiant and fully herself, eyes shining with both compassion and resolve. "Your envy cannot bind me," she said, her voice carrying the resonance of all her reclaimed memories. "You sought to bury my laughter, but it is not yours to control. It belongs to the world, to the land, and to every heart that believes in hope." The word struck with a power that no talisman or curse could resist. The flowers at her feet blossomed into a brilliant carpet of color, and light erupted from her being, washing over Zahira, dispersing the darkness that had threatened to consume her. Zahira's scream echoed as she staggered, realizing her defeat. The dark talismans shattered, the illusions collapsed, and her attempts to control Amara proved powerless against a heart that had fully remembered its own joy. The forest, once twisted by envy and shadow, thrummed with renewed life. Trees stood tall, rivers sparkled, animals moved freely, and the villagers watched in awe as Amara's laughter and light reclaimed the land. In that moment, the confrontation ended not with destruction, but with revelation. The magic of envy is fleeting, but the laughter of the pure-hearted endures, shaping the world, restoring life, and reclaiming what was once stolen. With the curse undone and the land blossoming in response to her joy, Amara returned to the village. Her steps were light, her heart full, and the air seemed to shimmer with her presence. Children ran ahead, squealing with delight as flowers unfurled beneath their feet, rivers sparkled along the path, and the golden lizard leapt from stone to stone, heralding her approach. The villagers, who had watched from afar, gathered in awe, their eyes wide with wonder at the spectacle of life and light that followed her. She was greeted first by Sifa, her loyal friend, who threw her arms around Amara, laughing and crying at once. "We thought we had lost you," she exclaimed, her voice trembling. Amara embraced her friend, feeling the warmth of human connection and the joy of her restored self. Elder Maliki and other village leaders approached, blessing her with words that resonated with the magic of the land. "You are the heart of our home, Amara. Your laughter has brought balance back to the world." The village erupted into celebration. Fires were lit along the central square, drums beat in rhythmic patterns that echoed through the hills, and songs of triumph and joy filled the air. Children danced barefoot among the blooming flowers, their laughter mingling with Amara's, and adults joined in, clapping, singing, and rejoicing. Every movement she made seemed to cause new life to spring forth. Petals tumbled from trees in a riot of color, streams sparkled with silver light, and even the wind seemed to carry the scent of fresh blossoms across the village. Amara took a moment to walk among the villagers, touching the earth, laughing freely, and feeling the pulse of life responding to her presence. She saw faces she had once struggled to remember, now clear in her mind, smiling back at her with pride and love. Each encounter was a reaffirmation of what she had endured and reclaimed. The golden lizard perched on her shoulder as if to remind her that the spirits of the land had always been with her, guiding and protecting. In the midst of the celebration, Zahira watched quietly from a distance. She no longer carried malice but instead stood humbled, recognizing the consequences of envy and cruelty. The villagers, guided by Maliki, allowed her to witness the festivity without interference, a final lesson in justice and balance. It was clear that Amara's laughter and joy were unstoppable, and her heart had become a living bridge between humanity and the magic of the natural world. As night fell, the village glowed with firelight and lanterns, music blending with the whispering wind. Amara, standing at the center of it all, felt a profound sense of wholeness. Her journey had not only restored her memories but had united the village with the land, teaching all who witnessed it that joy, kindness, and courage carry a power older and stronger than any curse. Her laughter, once almost silenced, now resonated across hills, rivers, and forests, a beacon of hope that could never be buried again. In the quiet moments after the village celebration, Amara sat beneath her mother's favorite tree, now vibrant with blossoms and bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. The forest hummed softly, a chorus of life that mirrored the rhythm of her heartbeat. She closed her eyes and allowed herself to reflect on the journey she had endured, the loss of her memories, the suffocating control of her stepmother, and the trials that had tested her spirit. Every step, every laugh, and every fragment of joy she had reclaimed now glimmered like a treasure within her. Amara understood something profound. Her laughter and memories were treasures that no one could bury, not even the dark magic of jealousy or the cruel intentions of those who sought to harm her. Each peal of joy, each ripple of kindness, carried power that extended beyond herself, reaching the flowers that bloomed at her feet, the rivers that danced in sunlight, and the hearts of the villagers she loved. Her journey had taught her that laughter was not just a sound, it was a force of life, a manifestation of resilience, and a beacon that could illuminate even the darkest places. Zahira, meanwhile, had faced the consequences of her actions. She stood at the edge of the village, humbled by the unstoppable power of goodness. In accordance with the wisdom of the elders and the natural order, she was exiled to live in reflection, not cast into darkness violently, but given time to reckon with her cruelty and perhaps learn the lesson of humility and restraint. The village accepted the balance of justice. Cruelty could not dominate, but those who had erred were given a chance to witness the strength of joy and, if possible, amend themselves. Amara breathed deeply, the scent of flowers and earth filling her senses. She realized that every hardship, every challenge, had strengthened her connection to life and the land. Her laughter was not merely a gift for herself, it was a legacy to share, a source of guidance for those who would come after her. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows, and yet her heart remained radiant, a reminder that joy, kindness, and laughter have enduring power, and cruelty cannot erase what is pure. In this reflective silence, she smiled softly. The journey had been hers alone, yet it was also shared, with the spirits of nature, the villagers who loved her, and the memories of her mother that still whispered encouragement through the wind. She had learned that the truest magic lay not in spells or curses, but in the courage to embrace one's own heart, in the will to laugh despite loss, and in the ability to let that laughter touch the world that years passed, and the story of Amara became woven into the heart of the village. Children who ran barefoot through the fields would pause to touch flowers that bloomed in impossible colors, and elders would smile knowingly, recalling the girl whose laughter had once defied darkness. Amara herself had grown into a figure of wisdom, a guiding presence among her people, yet she retained the same light-heartedness and joy that had characterized her youth. Her laughter was no longer just a sound, it had become a living legacy, a rhythm that shaped the land, nurtured the rivers and encouraged every creature to thrive. Parents would tell the tale of Amara to their children at dusk. Remember, her laughter blooms wherever sorrow falls. And when the story was told, the air seemed to shimmer. Flowers opened in the path of the listener's footsteps, streams sparkled brighter, and the wind carried the gentle hum of unseen birds. The village learned that joy was contagious, that laughter could plant seeds of resilience, and that the memory of goodness endured longer than any human attempt to suppress it. Amara spent her days walking among the villagers, guiding them, sharing stories and nurturing the land. Children would follow her, eager to hear the songs she sang and to witness the magic of her presence. Her touch caused buds to bloom, her words made rivers glint, and her laughter became the rhythm that connected generations. The golden lizard that had once accompanied her as a child now appeared sporadically, a quiet symbol of protection and continuity, a reminder of the mystical bond between Amara and the natural world. Even those who had known Zahira's envy saw the enduring lesson. Cruelty might twist and writhe for a time, but it could never conquer the truth of joy and love. Some who had erred quietly sought to make amends, planting flowers or caring for the animals she cherished, guided by the knowledge that the energy one places in the world will always return, either in beauty or in consequence. The tale of Amara became legend and living truth, a story told not only in words but in the land itself. Generations later, children still felt the magic in their laughter, noticing that the flowers seemed brighter when they played, that rivers sparkled when they danced, and that even when adults forgot the story, nature remembered. The hills, the forests, the sacred groves, and the rivers all seemed to carry her presence, a subtle and eternal reminder that pure joy cannot be buried, only shared and multiplied. In the quiet twilight, as the village rested and stars shimmered overhead, Amara would sometimes smile to herself, remembering the long journey she had undertaken. She understood that life's trials would come to all, but laughter, kindness, and a courageous heart would always endure. Even when humans forget, the land remembers, and where joy once walked, flowers bloom eternally, rivers shine, and the wind carries a melody of hope. The legacy of Amara's laughter had become timeless, a living testament to the enduring power of joy.